What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the 182 News Podcast. This is your host, Poppin' Curbs, and I appreciate you tuning in to another episode. This is the Big 5-0, podcast number 50. Are you kidding me? We're still going? How long have I been doing this thing? Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Hope you enjoyed the last episode. That was the Ian Grushka interview. That one was rad. Honestly, one of my favorite that I've done. I need to think about that. I don't know which interview is my favorite ever. It'd probably be, I don't know. I'm not even going to put it on the record right now, but that was a great one. Got some gnarly insight into the early days of New Found Glory. It was so cool to hear how really he was inspired by Blink and following those bands around in Florida. And, talking about what it takes to get a band going and perform at the level that they perform at. That was one of my key takeaways, and I hope the folks listening who are, upcoming musicians or trying to make it in the music world, I hope you listen to some of his advice at the very end. A lot of times I will ask my guests at the end if they have any advice for upcoming artists or whoever, and you really need to listen to those if that's the path you're trying to go down with your life. And what I have found is a running theme with these folks is, you really can't have a backup plan. You have to be so far in on this stuff that you just know you are going to do whatever it takes to succeed. And B, you have got to put the work in. I think a lot of folks think that you're just going to put a song up on YouTube, DM it to a few people, and you're just going to blow up. It's not how it works. So it was really fascinating to hear his insight about how they really built their fan base one by one. Their first show, they had one person there, he said. One person. So think about that. If you're in a band and you're starting out and you're playing at Billy Bob's Bar on Friday, if there's one person there, don't be discouraged. It's all good. New Found Glory has been ripping stages for 25-ish years at this point. I mean, don't give up. It's all good. You just gotta push through it and try to learn. And it reminds me of that old school mentality where, and Mark has this. This is instilled in Mark really to this day, where it's all about just gaining a fan. A nice thing here and there will gain a fan, and then the next time you come around, there'll be more fans and a little bit more and a little bit more. And you just keep building it until it's sustainable. Of course, the underlying cause of this, you have to have good songs. I mean, that's kind of step one. But I think so much of this, from what I see with these artists, is really just being cool to fans early and just getting out and playing shows and building it and building it and building it. He had a great quote at the end. He said, "No one will be a bigger fan of your band than you." And I think a lot of artists lose sight of that, or they're not in it for that. And it's just so refreshing to hear that perspective. And again, going back to Mark, he is the biggest Blink fan on the planet. Mark was literally wearing a Blink t-shirt the other day, old school Blink t-shirt. How many other bands do you see doing that? How many bands do you see rocking their own t-shirt? It is very few and far between. And when I see that, I know they love this and they're in it for the right reasons. So take that man's advice. That's kind of how I wanted to kick this off, following up on the last episode. I loved that story he told about getting Tom high at the hotel. And right away, Tom, thanks a lot. Now I can't be an astronaut. I was dying. I mean, that is just some good shit right there. So check that out. I've done a lot of promo on that. On today's episode, I'm going to hit on some recent news. We do have some stuff to talk about. If you're new to the podcast, on the interview episodes, I try to jump straight into the interviews so that they're essentially timeless, so that if somebody stumbles across that in 5 years, they're not listening to me talk about recent Blink news. And then in between on episodes like this, I'm going to hit on some news and topics and just things like that. So today, I'm going to touch base on some of the recent news that I didn't get a chance to hit on the last episode. And then I'm also going to talk about the New Found Glory show I went to because it was just so rad. On one of the last episodes, I think it was the last one of the year, I mentioned that my New Year's resolution was to step my game up on YouTube. Typically, I would put the episodes up, just the audio only. And I really didn't mess with the video components too much. To be honest, I just don't have a lot of time to edit it. That's what it comes down to on a lot of stuff. But outside of that, even outside of the podcast, I've really wanted to start doing more videos on collectibles and just random shit that I think's cool. The YouTube page game has been stepped up. So if I get hit by a bus today, I've already met my New Year's resolution, I feel like. And for those of you who are subbed over there, you'll notice that in the past couple weeks, I've put up a ton of clips of the Rick DeVoe interview. I got up a nice clip of Christopher Holmes talking about dogs eating dogs. I've done kind of some fun collectible sides of things with the Funko Pops. I did 2 videos on the Blink Funko Pops. I did a video on Travis's signed drum head that I picked up, which is gnarly. So definitely check out the YouTube page if you like this content and you want to, get some more of it from a different angle. There's a lot going on over there, so I hope to keep that up and keep doing rad shit over there. So let's get into this with some of the stuff I need to hit. So first off, let's talk about some Tom stuff that I haven't had a chance to hit on in some of these episodes yet. The big one, Tom's got a new guitar. And for those of you who have followed him, you've probably noticed this. If not, it's brand new. It's a Fender Custom Shop Starcaster, and he's using it for the first time. Now, for years, really since the Untitled era, he has been using that Gibson 333. It's the brown one, he's painted them and spray painted them with drips and burned them for years. It's going to be a different model this time around. He's going with Fender. He's back with Fender once again. These are gnarly, and I know there's differing opinions on this. For me, I'm stoked. To me, this is a new era of Blink, and I'm so down with any new gear, any different direction these dudes want to head, because I think of these little sections of Blink and albums as true eras. And to me, to kickstart this brand new one off with Tom back in the band, let's get a new guitar. I'm down with it. These are custom shops. They have Fender Strat necks, is my understanding. And some of them have like a smiley inlay built in on them, which is just unreal. Some of the ones that he showed off, he had a gold, a white, a surf green. I think there was a shell pink, a super light pink one. My favorite, I think, off the bat, was the white one. I really like the surf green one, then probably gold, then probably the shell pink. I liked the Gibsons. I even myself had switched to a semi hollow body not too long ago. I like having that bulky guitar, just like Tom does. He said that playing Strats and Les Pauls at this point, he's so tall that it just feels like a violin. So he likes the big bodies on these. He's been playing them for some time. So for me, this is a perfect transition back to Fender with what they had to offer. Now, I know some folks were kind of worried about what it would sound like, if they're going to have any of these for sale or what it is. I don't know yet. I don't think there's any plans for the Starcasters to hit the shelves, certainly not like a TD model or anything. You can still pick these up pretty cheap. I think there's a Squire version for like $300. The Gear 182 dudes had a video about these. They look rad. I really want to get one. And what I really want to do, but I don't know if it's going to happen, I'd like to do a sticker Strat version of a white Starcaster. So those of you who have seen the YouTube page and seen all of the documentation I have on that old school sticker Strat, I'm just picturing an updated sticker Strat version on a Starcaster that would be so fucking gnarly. And I honestly just want to play one of these because, like I said, I like a semi-hollow body or a hollow body guitar these days. But honestly, I don't have a chance to play too much recently, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But if I do get one, I'll probably sticker it up. One of the ones that Tom showed off initially, he has slapped some stickers on, and I think it's rad. Some people were complaining about it, of course, as is anything in life, but I'm down with stickers on a guitar for sure. I can't wait to see him on stage with this new guitar. It really is a big deal. So my hope is that they do release some sort of signature model at some point, but given that it's a custom shop, it's kind of pieced together. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, will I miss the Gibsons? I don't know. I think some of them have some rad splatter patterns to them. As far as sound goes, I think they'll be pretty similar, to be honest, especially once you get his amps going and the effects and all that stuff. I don't think it'll be too much of a difference sonically, but a lot of folks have come to love that guitar, and I hope he burns a couple of these bastards and spray paints them and gets that splatter going, because that's the part that I really love about his guitars, is just seeing the different colors and iterations that he has. I thought it was fascinating that actually some of those Gibsons ended up getting stripped and repainted multiple times. Talked about that on my podcast with the Gear 182 dudes. I did not realize that. I thought Gibson had, 50 of these guitars sent to Tom, and he was burning them all up individually and had a million of them to work with. And what I'm finding with a lot of these artists that has just shocked me throughout the years is they really don't have that much. Tom, I think, had 5 or 6 Gibsons. Those are $5 or $6 grand each at this point. My understanding is that Gibson wasn't able to accommodate getting these back to him in time for the tour. And so he kind of had to switch gears and see what Fender could offer. And long story short, he's back with Fender. He's got a new guitar, and we're going to see it very, very soon. So this is a big deal. I'm not the biggest gearhead in the world. You all know that. But I mean, even if you're just looking up on stage, Tom's going to look a little different this time around. So I'm stoked to see how these play out. The other big thing I want to mention with Tom, I don't want people to lose sight of, there is a live Angels and Airwaves album that's supposed to be dropping at some point this year, is my understanding. So Aaron Rubin has kind of teased this a little bit, nothing sound-wise, just the fact that he was mixing it. Anybody who caught Tom on that last Lifeforms tour, my takeaway is I thought he sounded great. I really, really did. And for years, folks have complained that Tom live can be hit and miss. And, I've seen Tom's performances where, yeah, maybe it doesn't sound too great. But for me, Blink's never about how tight they sound live or what notes Tom can ring out with his vocal cords on a live performance. That's not what Blink is about to me at all. It's more about just having fun at a show and those two joking between each other. But my takeaway really from Lifeforms, and it's such a short era, now that I think about it, it's just such a short era. But I thought that album was amazing. I thought it was a great timestamp of where Tom was really just the past couple years. And at that point, he wasn't in Blink. And so it was cool to hear where he was in his head sonically and the sounds that he wanted to produce. And I think that album was super fresh. I don't think it was anything recycled from Angels and Airwaves, with like Love and Love 2 that started to sound a little similar. I really thought it was an awesome new direction. And the key for me is he was at a point with Angels that he could do whatever the fuck he wanted to. So that's why you got various sounds. You had hard stuff like Euphoria. You had kind of upbeat stuff like Losing My Mind. And then you had kind of the slow acoustic sounding song. It was just all across the board. And I thought that was awesome. And if you went to those shows, I mean, Tom was joking at those like it was a Blink show, having the time of his life. And the live performance, they sounded so good. And I remember standing in the crowd at one of those shows and telling my buddy, like, dude, he sounds awesome. Like, I think if he was in Blink right now, they would sound amazing. And so, this live album, of course, there's probably some post-editing done to make it sound even better, but I'm stoked for this because that tour ripped. I'm stoked to hear live versions on some of those newer Angels and Airwaves songs, so don't lose sight of that. Yeah, we're getting Blink, which is the biggest deal ever, but it's also going to be super rad to get this live Angels and Airwaves album at some point. I would assume that's going to come out through To the Stars, hopefully. And if not, hopefully they at least have some rad bundles, vinyl, CD packages, etc. I'm sure they will. No release date yet on that. Really not a ton of info out there, but I think a lot of people have kind of forgot about that or placed it in the back of their mind with the Blink excitement, but it's coming. So we got some cool shit coming, no doubt. Let's switch gears to Mark a little bit. The key here that I want to talk about, there's just a couple things. So Hi, my name is Mark. Did release the Daphne Blue bass. That was the second version of it. Of course, we've had the pink one. Then they came out with this one. That was up for some time. You should have been able to snag one of those if you wanted one. It is now sold out. So I hope if you were waiting on that color, you really wanted one, you were able to snag it. And then what's really rad about that, and it's probably going to have a lot of people bummed they didn't pick one out, is he's going to be playing that on tour. So if you got one of those, you're going to be seeing that on stage. As of now, my understanding is that he's going to take one of those out on tour, which is sick. It seems like the next round of these is going to be the pink one again. So if you were waiting for that, sounds like that is going to be the route for the bass guitars coming out. Following the lines of pink bass guitars, here's a rad story. So years ago, Mark posted on a Facebook group a list of his bass guitars that he has owned and where he thinks they are at that point in time. It's probably 8 or 9 years ago. The screenshot's out there somewhere. And a lot of those on the list, we were aware of. There's Lettuce, there's Petey, there's the blonde from Plus 44. At the very bottom of that list, there was a little note, and it said, "Hot Pink Camouflage, given to Christopher Holmes." And a lot of folks, myself included at that time, were thinking, hot pink camo? I've never seen that before. Don't think I've seen that played live. Don't think there's been any pictures of it. What the fuck guitar is this? And how rad is that? For years, we have never seen this guitar. And I didn't think too much about it, in the past 6 or 7 years. Mark's got a lot of bass guitars. However, recently, there's a small group of us who are really trying to document Mark's bass guitars and guitars that he's used throughout time, the years they were used, what albums they were used on, etc. And I'm going to give a shout out to that crew. It's mostly Joey, of course, Davy Jones, Alan Corona's involved, the Sticker Strack crew, some of us who really want to document the history of this band so that when we're no longer here, the foundation is there for future Blink fans, future collectors, and just have the stuff out there. And myself, I'm not a gearhead. I help here when I can, but mostly I'm just a talking head who tries to bring some of these stories out on YouTube and on a shitty podcast. So I don't want to give myself too much credit. There's a lot of folks behind the scenes that are doing more work on this project than me, so huge shout out to them. So I'm involved in this, and we're discussing it, and it's like, yo, do we really not have a picture of this hot pink camo? And those dudes are like, no, we don't. And we're looking at the notes, and it's like, okay, the last note we have is it was given to Christopher Holmes. Well, 7 or 8 years ago, I didn't know Christopher Holmes. I never would have dreamt of knowing Christopher Holmes or Mark or having a Blink podcast or any of these dudes. Well, since then, I'm like, oh, I know Christopher Holmes. He's been on the pod. Great episode. If you want some gnarly insight into Plus 44 really through Dogs Eating Dogs, go back and listen to those episodes. I believe there are 2. And it's really about the best insight available on those albums in that time period. So definitely go check those out if you have not. One of my first interviews I did on this podcast. So they're like, dude, can you reach out to Chris? We need you to reach out to Chris and see just A, if he still has this, and B, if he's down to share pictures, maybe ask him. Like, okay. I reach out to Chris, and he's a super rad dude. He got right back to me, and he said, yeah, not only do I have this guitar, I use it on projects all the time, and it sounds amazing. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is epic. I'm like, dude, this bass has never been seen. There is not one fucking photo of this thing out there. And honestly, I don't think Mark has a picture of it. Mark was asked about it, and he was obviously aware of it. He's seen it. He gave it to him. But I don't think Mark has a picture of it, to be honest. If he did, we didn't see it. And so I reached out to Chris. I'm like, hey, man, is it possible to get a picture of this? We just don't know what it looks like. We're trying to document this stuff. He's like, yeah, I'll get you a picture. Sends me a couple pictures of it, and I open it up, and I don't know what to expect prior to this. A lot of us are like, pink camo. Okay, I start Googling Fender camouflage guitars. I didn't know if they did a run of these back in the early 2000s. I don't know if they've ever done a pink camo guitar. Not finding much. In my head, I'm just envisioning, basically an army outfit or something slapped on a guitar with pink on it, essentially. So I open this up and it's fucking rad. I mean, my first takeaway is, man, it is rad. And what really did it for me is there's gold and there is a gold pick guard, which I never would have predicted. So I open this up and here I am, really the only person on the planet with a picture of this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is fucking rad. However, as rad as it was for just me to see it, like a lot of things, I want to share this stuff with you all because I like bringing these stories out and these little tidbits of history. And so I wanted to make sure it was cool if I share it publicly before I share it publicly. And thankfully it was. And so for the first time ever, I was able to reveal this hot pink camo bass. And for those of you who follow the podcast Instagram at 182 News Pod, you saw that for the very first time. And it is gnarly. It's got the gold going on, but the thing that I definitely would have never predicted in a million years, it has smiley inlays. The blink smiley inlays, no arrows. So it's really rad. If you haven't seen those pictures, check it out. I have a video up on it for the reveal on the YouTube page. Just really, really cool. I was stoked to play a little role in bringing that out. I just get so excited over this shit. So it's super dope. I did watermark it. I feel bad watermarking stuff sometimes, but I will say, and this is something that just I don't understand, and it really bothers me, unfortunately. A lot of Blink pages out there just take content and do not give credit where credit is due. And for someone like myself, look, this is not a lucrative gig. I don't make any money off this podcast. So a lot of work and research and connections and just time goes into some of this stuff. So when I put it out there, if you're gonna steal it or not share my page, it's like at least fucking tag me or something. I was on Instagram the other day and I look at my little suggested photo thing, and there's a suggested photo that's my To the Stars guitars, and someone else had their watermark on it, like a big Blink page. And I open it up and I'm just like, what the fuck? It's cool to share the picture, but I don't understand why some of these other pages out there can't give credit where credit is due. Like, everything on my page is mine. It's my collection. It's my stuff. And if it's yours, I am more than happy to show you all the love in the world. I'll put the camera emoji. This is your photo. I will tag you. I will ask you in advance if it's cool to share the photo. I just don't get it. It's just something that really bothers me. Now, maybe this is because I took a lot of psychology classes where we had to write huge papers and you had to cite your fucking sources. So maybe that's just been instilled in me, but it's just a bummer. And, I don't want to spend too much time on that. But if anybody's complaining to me about the watermarks or you're mad about it, well, my takeaway is I kind of had to put the work in to bring this out. And unfortunately, other pages would take it and they wouldn't credit me on it. And for the work that goes into some of this stuff, I just want my little logo there. So, that's that side of it. The key there, though, is that this is a rad bass that had never been seen. Now it's seen. Now it's documented in the history books forever and ever. So huge shout out to Christopher Holmes for being rad enough to send that over. He also has the Baby Blue Music Man. And I shared a picture of this yesterday. So the Baby Blue Music Man was played, Dude Ranch era, essentially, through 98. And this is such a rad bass. It's one of Davy Jones' favorite bass guitars that Mark has ever played. In a lot of the photos that Davy snapped, Mark is playing it. So I shared a rad picture of Mark playing it, actually alongside Tom's Arnett Les Paul that I now have, which is sick. So Christopher Holmes does still have that, and it was gutted. However, he did tell me he has plans to restore that this year. So that's cool. One of the things that I just like about this stuff, I don't really get competitive. I'm like, who needs to own what or who should own which pieces or whatever. I don't give a fuck. Like, if you have stuff, I'm so stoked for you. That's awesome. The key for me on a lot of this stuff, especially their instruments, I just want to know that they are in a safe home, cherished, and protected. I am a history nerd on this stuff. So some of these are just iconic to me. So just the fact that it's in safe hands is all I care about. So I hope you enjoyed those photos. Those hadn't been seen in a long time, one of them ever. So hope you enjoyed that. That was a really cool thing. Check out the YouTube episode, the Mark Hoppus pink camo reveal, if you haven't yet. Quickly on Travis, I did a video on the signed drum heads that he has on his store, travisbarkerstore.com. I have collected Travis and Famous Stars and Strap stuff for a long time. Obviously, big autograph nerd. So when it comes to a signed item that is a used item, like a game used or stage used item, I mean, these are premium collectibles. I have talked about this in past episodes, but when it gets into sports collectibles or entertainment collectibles, a lot of folks spend a ton of money on some of that stuff. I mean, if you have, Michael Jordan game used shoes or Tom Brady game used shoes, that is essentially the highest collectible tier you can really get into on that side of things. And to me, it's just little pieces of history. So Travis, basically, it tends to happen towards the end of the year, but the past 3 years, he has dropped some used drum heads that are signed on his web store. And I've picked up a couple. They're some of my favorite Travis collectibles that I have. And what I like about him is he typically signs them pretty unique. So the first one I had was used on Blink songs in the studio. He signed it real big, Travis motherfucking Barker, which is kind of his premium signature. The one I just picked up, he signed, I think 9 times around the outside of it, which is insane. So I've got some pictures of that up. I did a little video on it. If you're into Travis collectibles, Blink collectibles, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny for these. But in my opinion, it's worth it. It's gnarly. You're not going to get this just walking down the street. You're not going to get, that nice of a premium autograph with full inscription or 9 autographs or whatever if you just run into Travis. So yeah, sometimes you got to pay the cost to be the boss on some of this stuff. But that's just the cost of doing business in the collectible game on this side of things. So check those out. I think there were still a few available if you wanted one. I was trying to figure out a good way to display these. I have some rad drum heads. They're some of my favorite collectibles when it comes to music and Blink in particular. Like when I think of music collectibles, I guess the top tier would probably be a signed guitar. Right underneath that would probably be a signed drum head. I think when it comes to just premium pieces, display pieces, those are probably the 2 things that come to mind as kind of top notch. Now, if those are actually used guitars by the musicians or used drum heads, that just takes it to a whole new level. So, for this side of things, it's really about as gnarly as it gets, in my opinion. So I was trying to figure out a way to display them. I wanted to find some sort of shadow box or something. Ultimately, you'll see it in the background on some of my videos. What I found is just put a fucking nail on the wall and I just hung it on it. And as of now, it's hanging just fine. I couldn't find a shadow box that was large enough. I couldn't find a custom shadow box that was cheap enough. I mean, you're getting $300 or $400 on some of those. So, yep, I put a nail on the wall. It's hanging there just fine for now. I'll let you know if I end up finding something else. So, that's one thing I wanted to hit on with Travis. The second thing, I just saw he fucked his finger up at rehearsal. Travis is always getting hurt. I feel so bad for Travis. I feel like every Blink tour or Plus 44 tour that I'm stoked to go see, Travis is like hurt right before it or during it or something. I feel so sorry for that dude. But the good news is I am so confident he will power through this. There is no doubt in my mind. I think he said he broke his finger and tore some ligaments. He posted a picture of it. It was all gnarly. He was getting some sort of injection. But I would venture to guess he will play this show or these shows one-handed if he has to. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I know some folks were freaking out thinking he's going to miss some of these dates. I would be absolutely shocked. I mean, he's played one-handed, he's played with one foot. I mean, I think he'll find a way to power through it. Honestly, he's better than a ton of drummers with one hand compared to those who have two. So I'm not concerned at all. Okay, let's switch gears to Blink just a little bit here. I mean, the big thing is they got some shows coming up. I mean, sooner than later, you're going to see Blink on stage. We're going to have some videos. Obviously, at that point in time, I can't wait to dig into some of those on, what songs they're playing, how it sounds, all that good stuff. I'm wondering when we're going to get this new album, when we're going to get a new song, with shows basically a month out, I would think we would get a new song pretty soon. I mean, I'm just starting to think, with Deluxe, we had several songs. With 9, we had several songs. With Lifeforms, I think we had 8 out of the 10 songs out before the album even dropped. So, if they're still targeting that spring or summer release, spring's right around the corner. There are not too many months left. Part of me kind of hopes they don't release a bunch of it. I was listening to an interview actually the other day with Mod Sun, and I think he was saying his approach on his new album was basically, I'm not going to release anything. He missed the album days where people were stoked to go buy an album and hadn't heard anything. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I do too, Mod Sun. I miss that too, because I was kind of bummed, honestly, when that Angels album dropped and I only had 2 songs that I hadn't heard yet. So part of me hopes that maybe they just drop one more, maybe 2 before the album. But we'll see. Edging is still out. It's still doing well. It's been out, I guess, 4 months at this point. So there's gotta be one coming up at some point soon, I would think. I don't think it would necessarily drop before some of these festival shows, but I would think at least 1 or 2 are gonna drop before, the big world tour kicks off, like in May. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to talk about the set list just a tad, just because this is starting to come up. I think I might end up doing a full episode on this because I was thinking in my head, like, what would the ideal set list be? I think I'm going to hold off until they get through some of these initial dates because a lot of these are like festival shows. So it's going to be hits. It's going to be probably a little bit shorter set. I don't know why folks seem to get so surprised when they play these shows and you're like, why are they playing all the small things? Well, they're going to play that. It's going to be a shorter set. Typically, traditionally, this isn't just Blink, this is any band, but it seems like obviously the dudes are rehearsing, starting to put together a set list. We've seen some of the stuff teased just a tad. Most of it that I've seen seems like what would be common sense. First Date, I Miss You, Damn It, all the small things, some of the stuff that they are going to play. Okay, this is a big deal. Blink is back with Tom. They're playing huge venues. It's going to be a lot of folks, first time probably seeing Blink. They're going to play their biggest songs, and they have 30 years of amazing songs, bangers. So it's tough to put together a set list. So it always kind of irks me when folks start getting real ticked off about the set list or the set list length. Look, at this point, I don't understand why you're so surprised. Blink's going to play an hour and a half. I just saw Newfound Glory, which I'll get into in a little bit. They played an hour and a half. Every band I go see is typically an hour and a half. So I don't understand why that always comes up. They're not going to play 2.5 hours. They're not going to do what the Foo Fighters or Bruce Springsteen do. That's what always comes up. And I'm just like, okay. 2.5 hours, I would be wore out, much less doing that every single night for 3 months. More power to the folks who do that. Hooray. But I think for this type of show, honestly, I'm with Mark. I think an hour and a half is just perfect. When it comes to some of the other songs that they're going to play, really the only surprise, and I don't know that it would be too much of a surprise, but the only one that I saw mentioned that caught me slightly off guard was, I think Ghost on the Dance Floor is on there, and that's awesome. So I love that song. So the fact that that even came up in the discussion was a little bit surprising to me, and that would be a true treat to see live, with Tom back in the band. I do hope that they hit on some neighborhood stuff, some dogs eating dogs stuff. Really, my main wish, and this isn't going to come into play on the festival shows, but for the actual tour, I do think they need a true, I guess, deep cut or two. And in my head, I would love to see like a Josie, M&M's. Now they played M&M's a couple years ago. I saw M&M's live with Skiba. I'd like to see Carousel back. I think we've got to get one of those Dude Ranch or Cheshire songs back in the rotation with Tom back in the band. And I think they will. I think we will get a Josie. I would kill for Pathetic. Oh my gosh. Just something like that. Sneak it in there. Maybe even have it as an audible or something. They've done that in the past. But I don't want to get to that until we get through some of these festival shows. So let's get through some of these. We'll lead up to the US stretch, which will be dedicated Blink shows. And then I think maybe we can talk about the set list just a little bit more. I see a lot of folks asking for like 9 deep cuts and some of the stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm like, I hate to break it to you. They're not going to play Ransom. It's like, they're not going to bust out Ransom at Lollapalooza, Brazil. I just honestly don't see it happening. I think when it comes to kind of the Skiba era songs, and I'll break this down in a future pod, but really the one that would still be in the rotation, I would think, if any, would be Bored to Death. I mean, I think that's the one that really they were still playing on the Enema tour, 20th anniversary tour. I just don't think they'll play it, to be honest. That's just my gut. My gut says that of all those songs, the one that arguably should have a spot would be Bored to Death. But my thing is like, just slide Edging in for it and you're good. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, I'll break that down once we start getting some of these, and I'm stoked as fuck to see what they're going to play as well. But yeah, takeaway is I hope Travis, I hope his finger heals quickly. And the next time we talk, we'll probably have some Blink shows to talk about. We'll probably have some set lists to break down, some live performances, maybe a new song. So that's rad. This year is going to be so sick. Can't wait for it. That's really all I wanted to hit on in Blinkland. Next, I want to talk about New Found Glory a little bit just because I went to this show recently. So let's touch base on that. So switching gears to New Found Glory stuff, I want to talk about the show. I want to talk about meeting Ian before the show. And then I also want to talk about the baseball cards that I made, which I think is like one of the raddest things in the world. You probably think it's the dumbest thing in the world, but I also want to give some of these away specific to this episode. So let's start there. Those of you who saw the promo graphic leading up to that episode, it was essentially a lot of Ian baseball cards. They had my little logo on it. It said New Pod. Part of the fun for me when I create these little episodes is not only the recording and the editing and the pushing it out, but I also build all of the marketing material with these little graphics. And a lot of times I try to have fun with those. And this is my little creative outlet. So leading up to that, Ian and I had discussed baseball stuff in the past. He's a big Marlins fan. I was a big Marlins fan for a long time. We both collect baseball cards. We're both huge baseball and sports collector nerds. So he and I had been in contact on that. And so I thought, what better way to kick off this podcast promo than just a neat little baseball card mock-up. And I've done these. I've made actual baseball cards, designed them that have been sold. I've made baseball cards to raise money for charities. I've made baseball cards for Blink. Some of you may have seen those in the past that I think are rad. I actually need to finish the backs of those, come to think of it. But I built a little digital mock-up of a graphic for the episode. And I released it. I teased it. The episode came out. Hopefully you all listened to it. Really enjoyed it. We talked about that at the very beginning. Now, in between that and the time I met up with Ian for the show, he sent me, or no, I sent him the graphic just to make sure he was cool with it before I posted it. And he was like, dude, are you making those? And I hadn't really thought about it. To me, it was just a little graphic. And I thought, you know what? I should. I really should. I think it would be sick. Maybe we can do something fun with it for the podcast, for some promo, some giveaways, something like that. And he was totally on board. So I had to design the back at that point. I wanted to tweak it a little bit. So instead of new pod, I put NFG on the side for Newfound Glory. Fun fact, that design is inspired by a 1984 Topps, which is one of my favorite baseball cards in the world. So nice little fun fact there. I designed the back. I got it put together. And my buddy Ryan printed them for me. Shout out Ryan, who does my print stuff. And leading up to meeting up with Ian, I was sending him pictures. He was so stoked. We were trying to figure out, what we could do to maybe give some of these away or just to do cool shit with. I'm all about cool shit. To me, this is a combo of baseball cards, autographs, and music I love. So it's really like the sickest thing in the world to me. So as you all know who listened to that episode, towards the end, we were talking about their new album coming out, Make the Most of It. We were talking about the new tour that was going to kick off near me in St. Louis. So I'm in Indiana. I typically have to catch shows in Indy, St. Louis, Nashville, or if I want to drive a super far away, Chicago. Their tour was starting off in St. Louis. I mentioned that it was near me, and without hesitation, he was like, dude, hit me up if you want to come. I'll put you on the guest list. I'm thinking, okay, I will absolutely hit you up for that. That would be super rad. And Ian, being a man of his word, put me on the guest list. So my buddy and I, actually my Blink friend in real life, who was on 2 episodes in the past, he and I drove to St. Louis and we met up with Ian prior to the show. I handed over the baseball cards. He was stoked. And we decided there on the spot that he would sign 49 of them. Reason being, it was the 49th episode. Another fun fact, if you look at the back of that card, the number that I put in the top right was number 49 to celebrate the 49th episode. There's so much thought that goes into all this stuff. I'm telling you, just little stuff nobody cares about. Your boy has thought of it. So to make that a really special piece, he signed them all and he hand numbered them out of 49. There are only 49 of those that exist. I did a giveaway on Instagram. I did a giveaway specific to my YouTube. And now I want to do a giveaway specific to this podcast. Before you ask, yes, I will ship internationally. I'm always blown away by the folks listening all over. I just got the year-end stats on the podcast, and it's like 80 fucking countries or something that this podcast is listened to, which is just insane. I can't even name I don't even know if I can name 10 countries. So thank you, wherever you are, for listening. I appreciate you. And yes, I will absolutely ship one of these to you overseas. It cost me 3 forever stamps. I got you. Don't you worry about it. Here is the giveaway for the pod. I'm going to give away 5 right now. So if you're listening, here's what I need you to do. If you want one of these, there's plenty of pictures of them on the Instagram page. In fact, one just arrived in France a couple days ago. All the way en français, mon ami. Shout out Clom. Here's where we're going to go with this. 2 trivia questions. I'm testing you all. I'm going to see who actually listens to the podcast, who actually pays attention to my voice for an hour and a half once a month. Question number 1, to receive one of these. I need, and I'm not even going to tie this in with the episode. These are going to be deep ones. These are deep cuts. These are those deep cuts you guys are bitching about on the set list. Question number 1. I need these answers, these correct answers, emailed to me, 182newspodcast@gmail.com. Question number 1, the first 5 folks who email me the correct answer to these 2 questions, I will ship one of these to you. Question 1, what CD has been in my CD player for damn near 3 years? I've talked about it multiple times. It's in the Kia. What do I talk about the CD player that is still in my CD player that I listen to? What is the answer to that? The second question on my top 10 most underrated Blink 182 songs, what was number one? Those are the two trivia questions for a free Ian Grushka limited edition out of 49 182 News baseball card. Answer both those. Email them to me, 182newspodcast at gmail.com. One, what's the CD that is still in my Kia? Two, what is the number one most underrated Blink song, in my opinion, from that episode? Shoot those over to me. The first five, I will reach out to you and get your address. If you've got the correct answers, you'll have a free card coming your way ASAP. So, Ian signed those before the show. I got a picture of him signing them. It's super sick. We chatted. We chatted about life. We chatted about sports cards. He has a card in Topps, their Allen and Ginter set. I brought some of those that he kindly signed for me. We kicked it before the show. I got a ton of vinyl signed. I got to meet the other dudes, which was really rad. In fact, I had a quick conversation with Cyrus, their drummer, who's amazing. He rips. Not Without a Fight, one of their albums that came out 2009-ish. It was produced by Mark. We hit on it briefly. And fun fact about that, it was actually, a lot of it was recorded at Travis and Mark's studio where they did the Plus 44 stuff. And Christopher Holmes was also involved on that. So it's actually pretty wild when I was doing a lot of research on this. I mean, obviously everybody knows Newfound Glory. I was big into them back in the day, have always followed them, haven't been the most hardcore NFG fan in the world, I'll say. They kind of fell a tad bit off my radar for a little bit. But I love the Resurrection album. I love Forever and Ever Times Infinity. And then I'll hit on their new album, which is just amazing in my opinion. But it's really crazy how many direct relations they have to kind of the Blink camp and the Blink folks. And Ian talked about that in the pod. He wanted Rick DeVoe to manage them. He wanted to be on the same label as Blink. I mean, even down to the artwork, it's all done by Tim Stedman, who did, some of the most iconic Blink album artwork that's out there. So I was just shocked reading through some of the liner notes, doing my research for that pod of all the similarities there. But one of the things that I wanted to ask Cyrus is when they were recording out at Mark and Travis's studio, did he use Travis's kit to record on? Because I had heard that somewhere. I thought it was rumored, and he actually confirmed that, yeah, he totally did. So that was cool. All those dudes are so fucking kind. I mean, just so nice. They truly love what they do. They love touring. I mean, they are a band that is out every summer, so definitely check them out. They just like playing live music, and I'm just shocked. Like they weren't even wearing like in-ears, no backing tracks, nothing. I mean, they just give them a little stage, or they just did an in-store the other day, give them like 6 feet of space, and they'll get out there and fucking rip. And if you have not dug into some of their discography, especially if you haven't really gotten back into them, or if they've kind of fell off your radar back in 2002 or 3-ish, go back. If you just want some pure pop punk bangers, definitely, put on the Essentials playlist or start digging some of their stuff, because I really kind of fell back in love with them researching for that episode and just fine-tuning everything that they had in their discography and running it back. So definitely recommend that. They're still out on tour for the Make the Most of It tour. The thing I wanted to talk about, though, is their recent album. So for those of you who don't know, their guitarist, Chad Gilbert, who's one of my favorite like pop punk guitarists. I mean, that dude's just got some gnarly chops, gnarly riffs, comes from a hardcore scene, which I love hardcore music. I love death metal. I'm all into breakdowns. I'm totally into that stuff. So the blend of that and pop punk, I think, is why I love NFG so much. The past couple years, he has had a tough battle with a rare form of cancer. And I don't want to butcher the name of this, but I believe it's pheochromocytoma. A couple years back, he was having issues, I think, with like his blood sugar levels. And they just kept telling him he was tired, you need to lose weight. He was trying all this stuff. Long story short, one night, his wife basically found him unconscious, kind of was giving him mouth to mouth, rushed him in. And essentially he ended up finding out that he had this rare form of cancer. And I think there was like 8 inches of it in his pancreas or in his liver, somewhere in his stomach, that he had to have emergency surgery and get this cut out. And so he went through that, and he's a younger dude, man. I think these dudes are like younger 40s, um, not too much older than me. So that that was tough for them, obviously. However, he powered through it, which was awesome. They went back out on tour last summer. They were celebrating 20 years of Sticks and Stones. Towards the end of the tour, he was getting pretty worn down again, didn't know what was going on. They were telling him that he was tired again, he needed to rest. He had a newborn at home, maybe that was causing stress, and that actually didn't end up being the case. He went back in again, and actually his cancer had came back. And it just fucking kills me to put myself in these folks' shoes. And obviously, I feel like we all just kind of went through this with Mark. And those of you who have been affected by cancer, who've had family affected by cancer, it's the fucking worst. I mean, it's the worst. And I could not imagine going through what Mark just went through and what Chad is currently going through. It's just something that you don't want to think about. You don't know how to deal with it probably until you're dealt it. And what I have always tried to do for my family members or whoever is affected by this is just be there for them. It's tough. What do you say other than stay strong, keep your head up? It's a really difficult thing. And I just can't imagine Chad going through this, beating it, and then actually finding out that it came back. So recently, it actually came back and it was in his spinal cord. They actually had to replace one of his discs. And actually, as of now, he still has remnants of this cancer in his lungs. So this album, and the reason I want to give some context here is if you listen to this album, right off the bat, if you don't know that background, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is some deep stuff. And if you know the background, you'll understand why it's so deep. So I think, obviously he's pretty limited physically right now, even when I just saw them about a week and a half ago. But leading up to this album, they kind of hit it from a different way with going an acoustic route. So this is an acoustic album. It's called Make the Most of It. It just came out 2 weeks ago. And some of the songs on here and the lyrics specifically, if you listen to this, I really want you to hone in on this because most of this is coming from Chad's perspective. And a lot of it, I mean, my first time listening to some of this stuff, I was just crying. I was driving to Indianapolis for work and I had this playing for the first time and I was just fucking in tears. And I want you to listen to it with that in mind. He's fighting through this. He's literally getting treatment for cancer in between the legs of this tour. So I think the first stretch of this tour ends tomorrow. He's seeing a specialist, actually, I think today, to get some experimental treatment for the cancer that is still in his lungs. And I'm sending all the good vibes his way to power through this, man, because he is a legend when it comes to this stuff, and I just cannot imagine what he's going through. So I want you to listen to that album if you haven't. The first 7 songs are original new acoustics. There's a song on there that I love that's called Kiss the Floor, and it's just talking about how grateful he is for another day. He says, when I wake up, I kiss her forehead. He's talking about his young daughter, breathing the air deeper than ever before, just truly appreciating each day that he has and has with his little one. I have a newborn daughter, 4-month-old daughter. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for me to be hit with the news that he had and think of not being able to see her or just not being here at this point with such a young family. He's talking about he just doesn't want to miss her first steps, really wants to take her shopping. It's deep. It's really deep and heavy shit. There's a song on there that basically says, if I'm lost to this sickness, I'll still smile down from heaven. It's heavy. And this is stuff that folks are dealing with on a daily basis, and don't take for what you have for granted. I mean, it's something that really seeing what he's going through and trying to almost put myself in his situation, I truly am trying to appreciate little moments of each day just a little bit more because there are folks out there who can't and who don't have that anymore, don't have that luxury of being here. And, regardless of what the circumstances was, even if it's accidental. You don't know. No day's guaranteed. So it's really just a beautiful album. And I was just so stoked. I'd never met them. So I was so stoked to get a chance to just shake their hand, take a picture with them, thank them for being there. The show was amazing. They're doing an acoustic set to align with the album. They were all over the stage. They had, Cyrus was playing guitar some. He was playing the keys some. He then got behind the drums on some. Chad was out there playing, ripping on acoustic, which was really cool to see. So to me, it was just a really cool, different vibe. I haven't been to a pop punk acoustic show. So I really, really encourage you to go check them out if they're near you. It was a really special set. They have VIP options. You can get there early, take a picture with them. They've got some cool merch. Check them out. There were really some emotional moments during the show, to be honest. Chad got pretty choked up talking about it. Jordan, the lead singer, during that Kiss the Floor song, actually, he got choked up. I mean, I asked Ian when we were hanging out before, I said, Ian, how do you guys perform this stuff without crying? And he said it's tough. He said it's really tough. There's that Lily song that I mentioned about. He said they didn't think they could play that. That's why that didn't make the set list. But it's just powerful, powerful stuff. And it was a super rad night. So I wanted to talk about that. I want you all to check out that album. I want you all to go see them. The tickets were like $40 if you want to buy them. It's small, rad, little beautiful venues. Go check them out if they are near you. Check out that album if they're not. And if you have seen it, I'd love to hear your experience. I've had some folks who listen to the pod or friends who have gone out there and they've name dropped the pod to Ian. One of the dudes, Joey, who's actually working on some of the bass research, he name dropped myself and Alan Corona, who made a bass for Ian that I actually got to hold, which was rad. Alan and David Salis designed a bass, delivered it to him last summer. I actually got to see that live debut. I posted a picture of that. Anyways, Joey was at VIP and was talking about that, and Ian was like, yo, hang off to the side. After we're done taking pictures here, I'll show you my basses. So Joey got to check out his basses. I saw another listener talk to Ian about the baseball cards. Ian went to his bus, grabbed one of the cards I made and signed it for him. So they're just such rad dudes, so down to earth. Ian was just such a kind soul, just a funny dude. So I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. That was truly a special moment for the pod. I don't know what this season brings. I know we're going to talk about a lot of Blink stuff, which is obviously sick. Interview wise, I don't really have a ton lined up right now. I've got some ideas, but I'm just grateful for any time I get a chance to chat with these folks and share it with you all. So that's all I really wanted to hit on today. Shoot me the answers to those trivia questions if you want a card. If you've got any questions, comments, I'm always down to chat Blink, chat Newfound Glory, whatever. If you've got any rad episode ideas, let me know. Somebody reached out the other day with a dope one that I wanted to hit on. That Untitled versus Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was a cool one that was recommended to me. So I'm always open to suggestions, down to talk about whatever. This was cool. We had a lot to catch up on. I had a cool show I wanted to kind of share with you all that experience, and this actually ended up being 40 minutes longer than I thought it would be. So appreciate you hanging out. Next time we chat, pretty sure we're going to have some Blink stuff to talk about. Let's fucking go. All right, folks, have a great day. Have a great weekend wherever you are. Peace.